Right, that's a great start to the afternoon. We're now going to move on to payments. And Martin, the CEO of Paysera, we spoke earlier about Paysera, what it's doing across Europe, many multi-locations, and I personally am looking forward to this. Thank you. Round of applause for Martin, please. Sorry, Marijus. Sorry.
That's right. Would you have Martin, by the way? Is that there? Okay. I don't like doing really difficult or hard to understand presentations. Typically, are very simple on my end. I like doing that in an agile way, a little bit organized way. So we're going to present agenda. I have about 30 minutes. And I wanted to ask you to raise the hands who actually know how Scrum works or are doing Scrum. All right. So half of audience, which means I can do it half technical and try to explain a bit of the details of the Scrum methodology itself, but also get more like a broader level. So the agenda would be, I'll introduce who I am, what the company does. We'll get a little bit more detail into the tier side. We'll get a little bit to the physiological side, and we'll get to the practice, how exactly that works. Okay? So if anybody against, raise a hand. If you don't like me, I can go out of the stage. Okay, love you too. Right, so Paysera. Paysera is a network of companies which are operating in different countries. So I'll go to a little bit side. It's a 19 years old company which is celebrating a birthday today. So we can congratulate. We do. Really looking forward for the year after when we'll have 20 years of operation, and we have 9 countries where it is operating. I don't read the small text, you can read yourself, but basically it's a fintech. If you can kind of read on Wikipedia what a fintech is, that's exactly what Paysera do. It's a financial institution empowering technology to do that faster, cheaper, more innovative, more interesting, and so on. Now, obviously, Paysera does exist in Kosovo as well, and it's widely known. It actually won first fintech year, which is amazing. 3 years ago, acquired the license, already have like 20,000 clients, 200 million of transactions. Just to understand, that's a huge amount of money moving back and forward. And I would say that it's growing very fast. In partnership of MasterCard, maybe Visa in time, we'll see. It's a huge opportunity for the company. I wish that very well. If you want to say hi or just to see the stand, just outside on the right side, has the biggest LCD screen, by the way. Right. As of myself, I'm representing Paysera Lithuania as a manager, but from the other hand, I'm responsible for the whole infrastructure in Paysera. Now, to understand, that's about 200 people working in a Scrum way, trying to deliver the value. Using generative AI, using the tech leads and everything else which was basically described in the presentations before. And the problem is that it has outgrown the way we understand Agile and Scrum for many times. Now, how do we do Scrum in general? So we read the book. It's actually very tiny with 2 schools. We say, okay, we do dailies, we do sprints, we do whatever, like retrospectives, we plan everything, we build something amazing, and that's it. In reality, when you go to the business club of different owners, is it at a fintech or insurtech, it doesn't really matter. The owner of the company says, like, we're doing Scrum. Another company saying, yeah, we're doing that too. They shake their hands, they go home, they're happy, and in reality, nothing works. Why? The Scrum itself doesn't define exactly how things need to be done. They say the rules, how do you play soccer in the field. By the way, congratulations on the great match. But in general, they don't teach you the tricks. They don't say how exactly you would deliver the value for business to be profitable. They may align you a goal, but at a certain point, you realize you need consultancy. So what do? We'll call the same guy who sold the Scrumming company, say, can you kind of give an advice? He says, yeah, that's fine, 10,000 euros. And then say, well, it's expensive, but that's the problem. The market itself is built around the consultancy. Now, I'm I'm for agile. I like these Scrum advisors. They don't like me, but that whole system of like invent yourself or give me money and I'll tell you, it distracts me. Now, let's say we pay that 10,000, we grow up to 200 people, we embrace the values which are on the right side, we do CI/CD, we integrate AI and that's it, and that, we come to the point where general Scrum doesn't work anymore. We have 10 teams. From the theory, the group of 10 elements needs a manager, which means we need to do Scrum on Scrum. Okay, we have a friend, we call him, and he says, well, you have many goals. How about you align all the company into one specific goal, and there is a way to do that. And he says, use this. 100,000 euros, by the way. I think some of them, or maybe many of them, you know what that is. That's safe. For me, it looks like a really complicated gaming board, which would get the most complicated game award in the year. There are many roles, many ways to do that. It's actually the last version. It gets bigger. And, I said, no, that's not the Paysera way. We're not going to do this. So what to do? You don't want to pay a lot of money for another consultant. You want to like a half of people working on the management and the processes. You want the real value. And there was one book I read 15 to 20 years ago. It was about natural movements in the nature which are empowering people to do amazing things, which we call evolution. Now, this is very, very serious because you don't have to control everything. Maybe you can use the natural powers, just direct them to achieve most of the work you need, just align them to a specific goal of the company. Maybe. It's a theory. Let's see. So you don't want bureaucracy, definitely. You don't want to write everything. Why? Because it's boring, and developers don't read it. They like to write code. And also, it doesn't fit for the IT environment. The IT itself is actually very dynamic. That's what a fintech is. That's why you don't be a bank. That's why we basically invent things. That's why we're having this conference to share the knowledge and to kind of invent something new. And all right, so let's not write things. Let's, for example, do something unique, like do whatever, like do gatherings, talk about this, paint pictures, sing a song. But there was, how did the people manage to outgrow themselves historically? Let's say 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years, 200,000 years ago, when humanity was basically invented. So actually there is a way. There's a way. The very first known social environment or social structure is tribes. This is the way people realized that they can empower themselves and align to reach common goals. It's very natural. It comes from the nature itself, and it's very orgastic, and it actually gives a power to people to make decisions and still be confident that others will support it. Now, there are some certain rules you have to follow for this actually to be true. I'm going to quote these rules. They are not mine. They do come from the writer, American writer, Ray Emelman, but they are actually working. First of all, you have to be confident that you can make a decision on anything you're doing. If you have to keep asking your manager, super manager, scrum master, colleagues to do some of the decisions, basically you're slowing yourself down. A typical daily can look like, I'm stuck because ticket is blocked. No, that happens very often. And when you get to the point that nobody's making decisions, that scrum tier basically collapses. What if we empower people saying, look, make decisions, make mistakes, but let's share them. Other point is that you have to have really good understanding. If you're making a decision, you have to be able to measure yourself, is your decision good or bad? The way to do that is actually to have measurable goals or understandable goals. In simple words, you have to know where you're going. Also, you have to have an enemy. If the tribe doesn't have an enemy, it doesn't know why does it exist. You have to fight the competitors, you have to fight another tribe, you have to find a list of books, you have to live for something. Because people tend to look for enemies, and if they don't have one, they invent one. For example, very often developers or managers are fighting against the structure or the system of the company. They're saying, Scrum's not working, I don't like it, I'll quit. There's another company which is paying more, and they are doing the Scrum better. Or other companies saying, the other employees are saying, it's actually, I like waterfall. Or maybe they're against any structure, but in general, if you don't create whom to fight with, they'll fight with you from the business perspective. Also, there are small things which do matter, symbols, like name of the tribe, or color, or t-shirt, or actually name of your department, or maybe name of your company. It does matter. People like saying that they work somewhere, and if you forbid that, actually you're going to lose the essence of the identity. And final, there has to be a power. The tribe has to have a power to be proud of something and actually have to feel powerful. This gives safety. Now, these are very, very common things which are mentioned in the book of Ray Immelman. There are more, like from 20 to 25, which others are a little bit smaller, but it pretty much, they're simple questions, really hard to implement in a company, but in general, if you try to answer them, typically you answer what will empower my team or myself to act naturally to a change. Now, this is not something new. Does anybody heard about Spotify model? Raise your hands again. It's an exercise today. Yes, it's a very old model. Actually, you do know that even Spotify didn't use it. It was that bad. The problem was that actually was about Scrum, about scaling Scrum. And on the SAFe says the same. They do the same mistake. They're trying to scale something which was not invented to be scalable. And in reality, they failed. But it didn't kind of, lost its power. It was like an idea. And in general, I would say the common mistake was to use the same methodology without changing, and also using the tribe has a bit of different purpose to exist. The limitation the tribe has is actually related to the resources they have. We can speak about budgets, we can speak about work scope, we can speak about whatever, like the money they're receiving as salaries. The tribe always worries about itself and not about the company. That was a common mistake. Anybody who was trying to implement the Spotify model has failed. And in general, is it working today? Yes, Facebook and Google is using that for 10 to 15 years already. We are using it, and Pipedrive is actually a unicorn right now, and you can go to Google and look for the Pipedrive article about scaling engineering. You'll find tribes. It's on Medium, by the way. Airbnb scaled in that same direction as well. It's not well announced because it's still changing. It's very fresh. It's a new way of thinking. And, well, it's actually working. At least big companies believe so. Now, do we do that? We started doing this at the beginning of the year. I didn't want to get to much of the details, how exactly that works, but to put one picture and can explain how does it differ from general Scrum, general SAFe. So put it very simple. We have a tribe. We have some kind of engineering manager, tech lead, you name it, but basically somebody responsible for the tribe to survive or exist. Then we have Launchpad. You can imagine like a space Launchpad where we are dealing with the bugs, with the support, maintenance, and so on. And then we have missions. A mission is just a project which starts and ends only when it's completely finished or failed. No distractions, nothing. Sounds very simple. Really hard to implement because you have to have enough people to leave enough of them for bug fixing and have at least 3 missions running because typically the backlogs are very long. So that's why tribes make sense up from 25 to 50 people. If that's smaller, you're just running Scrum. So that's an example. I've crafted it, but it's close to reality. So we have a tribe, the barbarians, it's actually the real name. And they have an enemy. It's a tribe about making e-commerce or checkout. And an enemy is that they have grown a lot. They have 2,000 transactions per second. They have to scale. They have a power because it's an old tribe. They have a lot of integrations they can consult, and they actually are growing. They can grow to 50 people, 100 people. Everybody who come to that tribe will know that actually we are the ones which are working on the B2B scaling. We are the ones which are, our power is already existing integration. That pretty much dictates that you have to take care of the monitoring, you have to kind of learn what the e-commerce is, and so on. And you can craft as many tribes as you want. There are many methodologies how to do that. For example, you can craft tribes on value streams. You can craft them on domains. Typically, developers are crafting them on the repositories, but that's not a good way to do that. Right. What happened when we tried actually to do that? There were some problems. One of the problems is that actually, company-wise, there's a change management and a growth management at the same time. From the practice, any of these can kill any company which is growing from a startup to the medium or high size. Now, two factors from the risk assessment is very dangerous. Also, the middle management or team leads has to be very, very mature. They have to understand what they're doing. You have to have really strong scrum masters, delivery managers, for this to happen, because there will be a lot of unknowns. For example, daily stand-ups, how do we do that? Like, we had 5 people, now we have 50. Do we all stand and talk? It can take hours. Also, do not rush. If there is a political decision to make tribes, typically C-level wants to do that very fast. That may collapse. And of course, if you'll have whatever methodology behind you, tribes, Scrum, Waterfall, and in the meantime, your backend or infrastructure will be crashing, you'll basically drop everything. You have to have a strong foundation. No outages, no non-working hardware, software. Just keep that stable, then you can do the change. That's pretty much it. Like I said, it's not too technical. If anybody's interested in specific details, how exactly do we do, what is a mission lead, how does a mission launches, how does it crash, you can catch me on LinkedIn or anywhere here. And basically, I hope next year I'll update you on the status. How did we go?
Marijus, not Martin. That was a bit shorter than I expected, because we have another 15 minutes. Should we chat together, me and you?
Yeah.
Let's do that. So thanks for a beautifully imaged presentation. Fantastic. But I'd like to go away from the tribe and the subject of your speech about how do you keep the startup gene and not turn into a bureaucratic organisation. I think that's one thing that we could discuss. You've worked for 19 years, right? 2 decades.
Yeah.
Have you ever raised any capital, venture capital?
Well, Paysera itself actually has an organic growth. There are some investments in a term that has to be some capital requirements met from central banks, but it's typically the organic growth. Now, to answer your question, I can basically give an example, let's say, of a startup. How does that work? So, would you have a startup which has an amazing idea, and everybody understands that idea and wants to basically to earn money? So when you're working in a startup, you can say that you believe in idea, you're basically a scientist, you want to change the world, but in reality you just want more money. That's the point of everybody doing startups. And you want clients to pay you money. These stupid bastards understand your idea, buy it. But in some point, up to 10 to 20 people, it's absolutely manageable because everybody's doing everything.
Yeah.
At the end, everybody's doing sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Marketing.
Yeah. And let's say you make money. You make first million, second million, all right, that'd be tens of thousands, and you realize you have to grow. You start hiring people. And at a certain point, being yourself still a shareholder, you realize that these people which were hired don't care about the idea anymore.
Yeah.
They care about their job. They care about understanding. They're specialists in their field. And, you start blaming them. Why do you don't believe? We're still a startup. But at the end, when you realize that actually 500 people, what Paysera is not a startup anymore.
Yeah.
You cannot empower people and say that basically you have to believe in me because the Paysera idea is great. What you can do, you can start writing these ideas. You can start writing rules, and you truly believe that the processes and the things, how people are working, will make people believe in that idea. In reality, you are creating a bureaucracy.
Yeah.
You're creating a set of rules people have to follow for that idea to happen. That's a common way.
So you're a startup, you get to a certain amount of people, you've scaled, then you have the pivot point that you've just described, where people are working for their jobs, not for the company per se. How do you get over that pivot? How do you get, well, not a pivot, but a hump?
Right, so there are many ways to achieve that. And tribes is one of them. If you kind of got the idea that concept of a tribe is basically splitting the company into smaller ones, which they will have their own idea and align them into common goals.
So they would be tribes.
Micro enterprises. So it's a set of micro enterprises.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and my concept, the way I'm presenting it, is actually to use some natural powers to make it easier.
Okay.
Because, you know, from the general university, achieving the corporate synergy between businesses is difficult. It's a separate, I would say, position as a corporate strategist. That's how they call them.
Yeah.
You know, without external help, I've seen companies failing a lot of times. You know, 3 to 4 times companies which outgrown 200 people collapse very quickly, where they should just try to split themselves.
Yeah. Where are you now as a team? How many people do you have?
So Paysera itself is 500 people. It's 200 in IT, and we have the goal to implement at least 5 tribes till the end of the year. We have 3.
Okay.
So it's a progress,
Absolutely.
but no, not the one I would like. But I said, we've learned the lesson. Don't rush. It's a big change. It's a mental change. People will leave because some don't believe in you, and that's normal.
Do you still describe yourself as a startup now?
When we are trying to describe how do we differ from the corporations or from the banks, so the bank itself is being considered as slow and clumsy bureaucratic machine, not like in the government in a sense, but whatever they do, they do that for years, okay? Yeah. So we would like to be in the size of the bank, but flexible as a fintech.
Absolutely. So last question, if you don't mind. Thank you for the innovation. The third decade of Paysera, what's it going to be like? How's it going to be?
I really enjoyed the first presentation of the Microsoft, which were talking about generative AI.
Absolutely.
That's totally the direction we will go. Totally agree on the curve that it will go down a little bit. But in general, like the colleague said, that now the AI technologies will basically change the way we understand the finance. And the ones which will basically understand the technology, will use that technology, will basically overcome in time the ones which they don't. Robots won't replace people.
No AI tribes.
No, I would say the tribes. Right, so one of the things we are trying to empower tribes to have one more employee or a process in their team is an AI robot. Right, for example, okay. Yeah. You know, whatever is the team, is that e-commerce, that's totally fine. You can ask him to do analysis on the potential, let's say, e-shop plugins we should develop. You know, which are what's the most popular. They know how to browse internet now. Or let's say if there is a tribe which uses of customer user experience, so writing tests, you know, my colleague said, is difficult, but especially when talking about the user interface. Go there and click that button. Yeah. Now, the previous tests were very stupid. If the button changes the position or changes from red to green, there's a high chance the test will break. Now, if that test machine would have a little more understanding or common sense to understand that's a button, that would be much more efficient. Right, so the third decade of Paysera, I think it will be about AI and data warehouse, which is a completely different topic.
Yeah, absolutely. You're around for the afternoon if anyone wants to talk to you. You're around. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you, Marijus.
Thank you.
Martin. Fascinating conversation. Thanks for being flexible for this little fireside chat.
Yeah,
but thank you very much to Marijus, please.